Nice, long, rapid game to help you sleep. And we have some tunes as well. Let's respond with e5 and keep it simple. Playing a 1200, they might know a few moves of theory. Here I'm just going to go with a standard response. Bring the knight out to c6 and defend pawn on e5, which is being attacked. Hey, it's a 45-minute game because some people take a while to sleep. I have sleep problems, so just in case. You have two moves here that are popular. Knight f6, that allows the fried liver, which is playable for both sides, or bishop c5, which is more symmetrical. I'm going to be boring. I will not be licking the microphone, but I will explain a few of the moves. Alright. Knight c3. Don't think it's threatening anything, so I will just go d6, support my bishop, support my center, and open up my light squared bishop. h3. That's safe. Good habits, you could say. Stops this move, but I'm just going to develop normally. Knight f6. And I'm going to be boring, and I'm thinking about playing h6 myself to stop the pin. The other option is maybe castling, and the third move that I'm thinking about is actually a6. a6 is pretty common here. It gives the bishop some extra room if it gets harassed to back out, but it also introduces the idea of b5 harassing some of white's pieces. A little more provocative. So h6, a6, or castles. Those are my three moves. a6, h6, or castles. I'm going to go with a6. I don't want it to be completely symmetrical, because at the end of the day I do want to win the game. And imbalances help create tension. And that's where I can maybe take advantage of a blunder. a4 stops b5. Now I'm down to two moves that I'm thinking about, h6 or castles. What else? You can also consider bishop e6. The trade of bishops isn't terrible at all. I'm just not sure how much I want to trade. Do we have any other move? I don't want to bore you guys, but at the same time, the goal is to bore you until you fall asleep. So, but we're going to stick with h6. Kind of the tenets of Amon's Building Habits series, h6 and a6. But now I'm going to do something a bit different. Instead of castling, and then we have a very boring position, but playable, I'm actually going to go g5. And I'm looking to attack. I'm thinking about following up with rook g8, putting my rook behind the pawn, and then pushing g4 and using the g file. The benefit here is that there's a pawn on h3. So as soon as I go g4, white's facing tension. Either their knight falls or there's an exchange on h3, which does open up things around the king, and that's white's king. Now, I'm deciding to do this because I know at the in case I overextend on the king side, I haven't committed to castling on the king side. I can castle on the queen side where the pawn structure is pretty safe right now. Because there are weaknesses by playing h6 and g5. My king can be, if it stays on e8, maybe f7, maybe some squares around the king are a bit looser as a result. But at least I have an option, if I really need to, maybe to move my bishop out, move my queen out, and queenside castle. That's if I feel the urge to castle, which depends on my opponent. So what I'm thinking about right now is rook g8 or g4. They both have similar ideas, to play g4 and to open things up on the g file. Another thing is I want to get my bishop in the game. I can go here or here. That would allow an exchange. I can't really go here or here. And if I can get g4 and initiate a trade, then my bishop all of a sudden does get in the game and also introduces a pin on this g4 to d1 diagonal, and that would be pretty hard for white to deal with because they no longer have an h-pawn to harass the bishop. So rook g8 or g4 right away. I would like h5 does not quite work. It's ambitious. The problem is it loosens up the g5 pawn, allowing white to just take g5 for free and pinning my own knight against me. So I have to be pretty careful. Which makes me think g4, rook g8. g4, rook g8. I'm going to start with g4 first. I really like the idea of getting my bishop out. Not being too committed to the attack, because by developing the bishop, it does aid in the attack, but it also aids in my ability to castle, queenside. Get my king to safety, and therefore connect the rooks. So now there's two pieces I could recapture, the knight or the bishop. My first reaction is to take back with the bishop because the bishop has never moved yet and I've already developed my knight. Secondly, when I take with a bishop, it pins this knight and might even introduce a move like knight d4, adding more pressure on that pin. It's a pretty unpleasant pin because there is no h-pawn to kick the bishop away. Taking with the knight's not bad though, it just doesn't seem... I still need to make a couple moves if I want a queenside castle. So it seems more committal, whereas bishop g4 is a developing move that also comes with threats. Knight g4 is not really a developing move, it's just an aggressive move. Are there any other moves? It's sometimes good to just take a scan of the position. You're focused on a couple moves, but you have extra time, you can use it. And sure, knight g4 and bishop g4 stand out, and I'm calculating. But if I can find a third candidate move, sometimes that's useful. Maybe rook g8. Maybe it's worth looking at that because maybe I can take back with a rook and even get a better position, just to try to make sure I don't tunnel vision too hard. Champ is saying, is this YouTube content? Well, my goal is to get you to fall asleep. But if I can't get you to fall asleep, hopefully I can get some of the YouTube crowd to fall asleep. Yes. You said play some rapid chess, so I'm playing some rapid chess. And I'm gonna take with the bishop. I do like knight d4 as a follow-up. I do like that I can move my queen and consider queenside castling, connecting my rooks and bringing more pieces. There's different kinds of rapid chess. This is just a longer time control. You were thinking 15 or 20 minutes? Well, let me tell you, champ, this game will be over in 15 or 20 minutes. I'm just trying to make sure you get some sleep. My opponent's not spending that much time. They're definitely not calculating everything. But they did stop knight d4. Knight d4 can still be played, but at least white can trade off their bishop for the knight. The problem is if I take back with the bishop on e3, and white has two options, queen captures or pawn captures. I'm concerned about pawn captures, because if they take back with a pawn, the rook becomes a defender of f3, an additional defender, and the new pawn on e3 takes away my ability to put a knight on d4. So white opens up the f file and covers d4. So I don't want to trade bishops. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm not going to take, I'm thinking about rook g8 immediately, because at least if I allow white to trade on c5, I still have knight d4 as a move. This knight's an important piece. There are some other tempting moves as well. One of them is knight h5. Why is knight h5 interesting? Because in some positions, it might be able to go to f4, hitting the queen and g2 if this bishop vacates the diagonal. It also allows the queen to get a little closer to white's position because it frees up the f6 square. So that might be another idea. So I have a couple ideas here. I have rook g8. I have knight h5. And I have knight d4. So out of all those moves, one thing I like about knight d4 is that if we trade, I get the bishop pair, white loses their dark squared bishop, and I still have a lot of the pressure on the dark squares and on the light squares. Because if I allow white to capture, those are doubled pawns. Doubled pawns aren't the end of the world, but feels unnecessary to allow it. I'm going to play knight d4. Hopefully after... I'm assuming white's trading because if they move their queen back, I'm just getting more pressure on the knight. And now I can take back with the pawn or the bishop. That's an easy decision. Take back with a bishop to keep the diagonal open, keep the pawns intact, keep the pressure on. Because it's just super important to realize that this knight, it can take the bishop, but at the cost of the queen. So I'm pretty happy with my bishops. This bishop is pinning this knight. It's developed. This bishop is putting pressure here. It's also covering this diagonal. So I have coverage on lots of the board, and I still have moves I want to make. I want to play rook g8, put some additional pressure on the king side. I want to play maybe queen d7. I want to prepare to queenside castle. And then when I queenside castle, I can bring my other rook in. Again, as long as this knight can't capture, I'm pretty happy with all my pieces. So I have a move that I'm pretty excited to try. It is... I have a couple moves. Rook g8, queen d7, or knight h5. Same as before. Those are my three moves. And they're all very tempting. But you know what I'm noticing is this pawn is pinned. It can't move because there's a check. So if I go knight here, I can actually technically move my knight to g3, forking the queen and rook, and it can't be captured because the pawn is pinned by the bishop. I also have the idea of knight f4, which one of our viewers wanted earlier. And now white doesn't have any piece that can capture it. Knight f4 hits the queen, improves the knight, also puts pressure on g2. And then again, queen d7 is a good move. I prepared a queenside castle, but it's not going for the kill. And even though I'm trying to get some of you to fall asleep, I also need to go for the kill. So I'm going to be a little direct here, and I'm going to play knight h5. And I have two options, knight f4, and also knight g3. For now, as long as this pawn is pinned. Again, white doesn't have an h-pawn, which makes it very annoying to deal with this pin, because how do you remove my bishop on g4? And if you don't remove my bishop on g4, your queen is kind of stuck. Because I don't think you want to ever allow this trade where white has to recapture the pawn. Then the king would be completely naked. So, without making too many bad moves, I think white is in a bit of an issue. Just dealing with this very active bishop pair. I would consider moving the king if I was white. Something like maybe king here. That's a great move. It removes the threat of knight g3 because now the pawn or king can capture. And that's not that easy to find, if you ask me. I think I'm going to continue with some of those moves that I wanted to play earlier, such as rook g8. My rook is not really doing anything on the h file because I'm hindered by my own pawn. Whereas on the g file, I might be able to add some pressure on g2 and get to the king. So one move that concerns me if I'm playing white here is again knight f4. It hits the queen and it just gets a knight into enemy territory. And knight d5 is a good move to try to fight that. That's a good move. Because now if I go knight f4, it's a trade. And I'm not really in the business of trading. Because, you know, I wanted to move knight here. Then I could potentially take on f3. And my rook can take the pawn on g2. So it kind of stops one of my threats. And I don't want to go knight f4. When you're attacking, you want to value pieces. And if I just keep trading pieces, my attack will diminish in value. Because I'll just run out of, there's only a certain amount of pieces that I have available to me that can actually attack white's king. This knight is one of them. This rook on a8 is not one of them right now. So a 1-for-1 trade, if you just trade all the pieces, you're not going to checkmate someone because you're not even going to have any sort of majority on that side of the board to actually get to the king. So I need to create some imbalance. I want my knight on f4 and I want it clean. So I need to get rid of this knight, which is covering it. Because it'd be nice, if I could go queen here, I would. But that hangs my queen. It wins their queen, but it hangs my queen. I can't put my queen here. I can't put my queen here. I can still put my queen on d7. And queenside castle, that's still an option. But the move that I like the most is pawn to c6. It kicks away the knight because it's a pawn attacking the knight. And as soon as the knight moves, then I can move my knight into the f4 square and put more pressure on white's kingside. If you attack a piece with a pawn, it's usually considered a threat because your pawn is 1 point, a piece is 3 points. Your opponent should react to it, otherwise they're just going to fall behind in value. Whereas none of black's pieces are being attacked by pawns right now, so I'm not really concerned. Even if this knight could capture on d4 without losing the queen, even if that was the case, that would be a piece for piece trade. Not a pawn, which is for a knight or bishop, but a bishop for a knight. That would be relatively even. But this would not be. c6 attacking the knight. I think you have to move the knight. Don't want to give that away for free, but then knight f4 is going to come in. The one thing I like to look at is to make sure all my pieces are involved when I'm attacking. And you know what, the rook here and the queen here are not fully there yet, but it's a process. It wasn't, it takes time. And it's a turn-based game, so you only try to maximize one move at a time. You have to be objective about it. But that's one reason why I thought about queenside castling here, is because then I can get that other rook involved too. But that's still a few moves away. Move the queen off the back rank, queenside castle. I still need to double my rooks to figure out what to do. The rook doesn't get over to the king side easily, so I'm trying to be realistic here and use the pieces that can get access to white's king. And then if I need more firepower, I know I know where to get it from. So let's go. I said I wanted to play knight f4. now that it's available, now that there's no pieces covering it, and here we are. If they go queen d1, it's kind of nasty to say, but I have a forced checkmate, which is about 10 moves. And I could explain it. I think my opponent might run into it. If you want to visualize with me, this actually is about to get advanced. Okay, he doesn't go for it. I was about to show something, but I didn't get a chance. That might be a bonus for after the game. Unfortunately here, this simply allows me to take, and now the queen is no longer reinforcing the knight, right? So it means white has to take back with the pawn, and all that does is open up this this rook for the g-file and free up the queen. So bishop takes. I'm trading off a knight for a bishop, and I'm trading off one of my attacking pieces. But what it does is it cripples white's kingside protection, and it removes the knight that is preventing my best piece, the queen, from entering the game. And I haven't sacrificed anything, I haven't really risked anything, just some favorable trades, and now simply a checkmate in one move here. If you want to be sadistic, you could probably take the knight first, see mate in one, look for better, and then bring the queen in. There's nothing white can do to prevent it, but it's good to practice good habits. And I'm just going to bring the queen in. Before I drop the piece down, I have 37 minutes, so I'm not going to make the move yet. I'm going to visualize. This is a check. Can white block? No. There's no pieces to block. Can white move back? No. The queen checks like a rook. Can white move their king to the g-file? No. The rook on g8 is covering the entire file. That's like a ladder checkmate, right? So, if you think it's checkmate and you have lots of time, might as well double check. So there we go. That's the checkmate. Just a nice clean game. Kind of got my g-file attack going, but I got a checkmate to show as a bonus since not everyone's fallen asleep yet. I think here it was in white's best interest to not allow me to take on f3 and cripple the king, right? What move should white have played? Queen d1. Because you want to be able to take back on f3 with the queen. If I were to capture here, and they capture with the queen, as opposed to the pawn, the difference is that if I go queen h4 check, king g1, it's not immediately checkmate. Unfortunately, the position is really bad that I'm probably still going to win this, potentially with knight h3 check. Notice the rook on the g-file is doing a really good job pinning it. The queen can't capture, or it can, but then white will lose their queen after I just recapture on h3, and you can't take my queen back. And if they move their king anywhere, I have knight g5. That's a discovered check on the king, and the queen is going to fall once again. But it would have been better. So instead of doing that, I was just thinking to myself, I want to find something fancy. That wins, it wins the queen, I'm going to win the game, but I want to checkmate. So my opponent played queen d1. I was going for this, and I thought they were going to fall for it. It's not forced, but I thought they were going to fall for it for sure. Bishop takes knight, right? A 1-for-1 trade. Removing one of the knights, white recaptures. Then I was going to go knight takes g2. Sacrificing the knight for the pawn just to like remove all the pawns around white's king. And I want to reiterate, this isn't forced, but I was probably going to play it for style points. White has maybe some moves to defend, but I don't think he's going to find them. So I take here. You're like, okay, you're just giving up a knight for a pawn, right? So white's king is probably going to capture, because if they don't capture, they're just down a pawn and their king's getting blown up anyways. So king takes g2. Then I was going to go bishop takes f3 check, and that's a double check. It's checked by the rook and the bishop. So how do you get, well, you can move your king out of the way like this, and now you would just run into checkmate, right? Or I could win the queen, but I would probably play checkmate. So let's just assume white takes on f3. That gets out of the check, and it gets rid of the bishop. Then I was going to go queen to f6 check. The king can't go over this way because of the rook. And there's no pieces to defend or block, so the king has to go to e2. Then I was going to go rook all the way down to g2 check. King can't move up, it has to move down the board. You can't block with a rook because I have two pieces on it. I would just recapture the queen right here. That would be checkmate. So the king actually would have to move down, can't go anywhere else. And then I would play one more check, queen to h4, and then white's king has no more moves, can't move up, can't move to the side, has to block with a rook. And again, I'm going to take the rook with the queen, not my rook, because taking with the queen actually results in checkmate. Taking with a rook just wins the rook. So I was going to set up something like that. This would be checkmate. It wasn't the best, but I was going to go for style points. Because, you know, I need to win fast to make sure some of you guys stay asleep. But, yeah. That was, I guess, a quick demolition of white's kingside. And hopefully with the ambient music and a bit of commentary, a few people found that relaxing, and out of those few people, maybe a couple fell asleep. That'd be perfect. Some nice, soothing rapid chess. Maybe I'll do some more if people like it. But I would need a lot of people to listen and repeat it and get one of those ASMR playlists going.